Welcome back, everyone. Craig here. I was recently mediating a case involving a brain injury that, with the primary symptoms being persistent vertigo or vertigo type symptoms. And this particular person was a truck driver when they got the injury, and as a result of those symptoms, um, could not pass a DOT physical and was no longer legally able to drive a commercial motor vehicle, and so had a substantial actual loss of earnings. And so one of the issues is, well, can he do things other than drive truck? It's understandable why you would not want someone driving a commercial motor vehicle, semi truck, dump truck, straight truck, cement truck, things like that, if they are in any way unsure, unsteady, delayed in their response times, things like that, that people with vertigo and dizziness and some sort of the traditional symptoms of a traumatic brain injury concussion can have. So what can they do, and what does the law allow in terms of damages in that situation? That can vary a lot by state, but there's a few general concepts that I think people should be aware of that are pretty common. So first of all, generally speaking, at least into the future, the standard is loss of earning capacity as opposed to loss of earnings. So if I get into a car crash or I trip and fall and I'm injured and I'm no longer able to do the job that I'm doing now, I'm not simply allowed to go sit at home and do nothing and demand the full value of my wages that I lost if I'm able to find at least some partial employment elsewhere doing a different kind of job. And if that alternative job makes less money than I was at my other job, then it may be the difference between those. But there's a concept called mitigation of damages. Most states will have it, and that simply means that if you are injured, if you're a plaintiff and you're injured, you have a duty to mitigate your damages, which is to take reasonable steps to try and reduce the financial consequences of your injury. That may mean going to the doctor so you can actually get better. If there is a surgery that's going to really improve things and has a minimal amount of risk or adverse consequences, there may be a duty to mitigate and have that procedure done, as opposed to doing nothing and maybe it gets worse and then you're really in a bad situation. The law does require you as a plaintiff in most states to take reasonable steps to mitigate your damages. And in the case of losing your job, it generally means a duty to go out and find reasonable alternative employment. It may involve going and getting retrained or re-educated, if you're in a specialized field and you need some additional training, computer training, things like that, so that you can translate your past experience and education into a new career that is compatible with your injuries and ongoing limitations. Now, a few things to keep in mind, especially as it pertains to traumatic brain injuries and things like that, is it can seem that, well, there's a lot of things this person can do. The brain injury doesn't necessarily prevent you from lifting. It doesn't prevent you from, squatting, getting up, may not prevent you from driving locally, even if you're not able to drive a semi truck. So there, on face value, there may seem to be a lot of things that you can do as someone who has a brain injury with sort of persistent, but not, let's say, debilitating type injuries and symptoms. A common thing that people with brain injuries deal with is they have good days and bad days. Some days you wake up and you can't get out of the house. Other days you can get up, and if you're careful about things, you can go about your day, take breaks, rest, and things like that. So one of the major challenges that people with brain injuries have in taking any kind of employment is the inability to know for sure when I can go to work and when I may need to call in sick. And that lack of reliability can be a very real problem for people getting jobs. And so that is something that it's really important, especially for plaintiffs' attorneys and vocational experts, to hone in on and say, okay, in theory, there are certain skills that this person has, certain jobs and occupations that they could do. But in practice, is that actually feasible? Is an employer going to be able to employ them on a job that they may have to just randomly call in sick at the last minute, or leave early because their symptoms flare up? A lot of employers don't have the ability to give that kind of flexibility, may not have coverage. Um, some positions you can't just leave and not have someone there, and so that reliability and predictability is a part of a lot of jobs that I think people can overlook, especially insurance companies and adjusters can overlook. And also, even let's say a low demand type job, a busy job, going stocking shelves, working as a cashier, things like that can have a long term consequence to someone who has a brain injury, whose brain becomes more easily fatigued, overloaded, and then tomorrow is a worse day. It can add a lot of stress to their lives. So, for people that have these sort of unseen injuries involving the brain, it's really important to hone in on what can this person reasonably expect in terms of employment, and what can't they do, and to make sure that you're not selling yourself short when it comes to earnings and earning capacity in these kinds of cases. So I hope that helps people about that. It will vary by state. It is important in these kinds of cases to probably talk to a vocational expert. There are people that's their job. A lot of them are funded by the state to help people find new jobs. And that can be a very good sign that someone is trying to mitigate their damages, is if they go to a rehab or vocational rehabilitation program to try and identify jobs, positions, careers, and see what that actually looks like. And is this feasible for someone, or are they likely to be constantly switching jobs because an employer just can't handle that type of uncertainty in this position? So hopefully that's helpful. Hopefully that explains what mitigation of damages means within the context of brain injuries and a loss of earnings, loss of earning capacity claims. So thanks everyone for listening. And until next time, everyone, have a good one.